Greetings from the Leadership Board. The board wants you, the members of Friends Community Church, to know that with sadness and regret that we accept the resignation of Terry Sawatsky as our pastor, effective June 30th, 2021. Our prayers and blessings go with you, Terry, and with Kathy. We've had a wonderful time with you both. In light of this news, the board has decided to search for an interim pastor while we recruit a long-term pastor. Again, we ask you for your prayers. We know God is preparing someone for us. God be with you all and give you peace. Amen.
So thanks, Doug, for your letter, and to the Leadership Board for your support for the decision that Kathy and I have come to together, and our daughter Tamara has been a part of that decision as well. This week is a little bit different, as you probably have picked up already. I'm sharing with you some personal news, and I do so with sadness, since it's about Kathy and I moving to something different. I do so with joy, knowing God has much in store for Kathy and I and for Friends Community Church, and I do so with anticipation, wondering what God is up to and what He's going to do. I've been trying to write this letter of retirement for a while, and it never seems to be just right. Usually when that happens, it's because I'm needing to spend a little bit more time praying and processing, and after all of that, it comes pretty clear that maybe it's best to be just very simple and direct. And so I would say to you folks, my friends, my brothers and sisters at Friends Community Church, for everything there is a season, taken from Ecclesiastes. June 22, 2020, I turned 65. This year I'll be 66, and it's time to retire. And I'd like to do that, as Doug indicated, by June 30th, 2021. In conversation with our conference minister and with others, it was just felt like this was the best time for the church to be able to find somebody, the best time during the year for people that like to move during the summer, that gives sufficient time for that to happen. Part of the question here is why now, because this probably comes as a surprise for some of you. The simple answer is, after spending lots of time sorting this out with God and Joy and Tamar, Joy is, of course, Kathy, I'm at peace with the decision. Until I was assured of that peace, I wasn't at liberty to make the decision. A significant part of the processing over this decision was quite solitary. And for those of you who would have liked me to have conversations with you on this, I do apologize. I just know that for myself, when these kind of decisions need to be made, it becomes very personal and very solitary, but it isn't lonely. Because it's a special time between me and God. It's where I meet God most intimately, that place of solitude. I actually test out very strongly as an introvert, and usually that means that my personal space with God is absolutely essential to me, and part of the decision making here comes out of that. Through that, I came to realize God was calling someone else to be pastor at Friends Community Church. Somebody else for the next season of the church. I've seen my role as being a bit of a stabilizer. I focus a lot on pastoral counseling, teaching. It's a wonderful season for me, including Sunday mornings and all of that. But like all seasons, there is another to follow. Nicholas Lindsay, perhaps my favorite university professor and a practicing poet, once told me writing is like seeing the tip of the iceberg, but knowing there's at least 2/3 of that iceberg under the surface. And then this decision is a lot like that. Getting my mind around the word retire was one of the first things that I had to think about, because you see, retiring for me has been for old folks, which meant for me later, much, much later. But the clock that says 65 has come and gone. And while I'm feeling just fine, the reality is that 66 is around the corner. And with those thoughts, retirement began to seem less like getting old and more like a door into different challenges and new possibilities. What might those possibilities be? Well, a little while ago, Joy and I were working on the river before the river walk was suspended because of warmer weather. It was on a Sunday morning, and during COVID, we could do that. And Joy knew so many more folks than I did. Her job as a teacher connects her to children and families, and that includes grandparents, especially during COVID. And it seemed like every other group we passed knew Madame Oder. I'm delighted to connect with folks here at Friends Church on a Sunday morning, but it hit me dead center. How many people are out there who could care less about church and can care less about doing church on a Sunday morning? It's no criticism of them, it's just that there's a whole bunch of people, the vast majority of Canadians, that don't connect to church on a Sunday morning, and that hit me pretty hard. That's been a part of this decision. I don't know precisely what God is calling me to do, but I do know I need to create space for God to fill with something different. I know it'll have something to do with the kind of connections Joy has with people, and I need to let God fill that space created by retirement. There are things I would like to do. Writing is one of those. Writing about people I've met. Writing poetry, which is perhaps my first love in writing. Jazz and blues poetry, and discovering a new generation of poets. I get energized by the possibility of spending some time doing that. Reading is another. I want to read again books like In His Steps and Francis Chan's Letters to the Church and Brian McLaren's We Make the Road by Walking, and Genesis and John and James and Ecclesiastes, and Henry Nouwen on spiritual direction and wounded healers. There are so many books I want to read again to see if I understand them better or differently when I read them before. And then there's all those books I haven't yet considered, and I want to read them too. I don't know what the titles are, not yet, but I want to read them. I'd like to learn more about the young woman